for this discussion and having my book as a point of reference for your discussions and readings. I'm very happy that it is translated into Ukrainian now after being translated into other languages, but especially, in each time the context for the book appearing in different languages is very important. And I see now this book working in the field of Ukrainian experience. And this is also very important for me to know more. How do you read this book in that context? I remember when only this book was published in English in United States and UK. I had several discussions and debates at the different universities why it is so actual. It was like, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. And it was also very much about the crisis of multicultural society, which we see now in more advanced phase in United States also, and in generally in the West. So as you probably know, I'm working in the Borderland Foundation and this center, which we call Borderland of Arts, Cultures and Nations, which is located in a small town in northeastern Poland, Sejny, and in a village where I'm now, Krasnogróda, just on the border with Lithuania. And the place where we have International Center for Dialogue, which we created in the manor house family, small homeland of Czesław Miłosz family, who is, for me, very important person and mentor. And I had this luck to meet him when only he could come back to this part of the world after being, on the emigration after Second World War. So he spent a lot of years first in France and in United States, but then he was living enough long to come back, and that's how he somehow overcame this pattern, which we have very deeply rooted in Polish culture, but I think also in Ukrainian and some others of immigrants, of very important figures, thinkers, writers, artists developing the workshop and in the West, somewhere, in immigration. And that's, this romantic pattern of Adam Mickiewicz, for example, and Polish immigration somewhere in the West. So we usually had these narratives about being uprooted and being, living, being kind of an outsider living elsewhere, not in homeland, not in your own place. And this pattern of exile was, dominant for our way of thinking also for quite a long time. It was all 19th century, 20th century, and Miłosz was one of the first for me who tried to build another narrative about this, about return or returning, and both in symbolic, philosophical sense, but also in a real terms, that he had this possibility to come back, not only to visit, but at the last part of his life, the very end of his life, he spent in Krakow, in Poland. So that was a lesson he wanted also to transmit into the way of thinking about where we are now, in the world with our search for who we are and what is important. I'm saying about that because you may find it also in my book. This way of thinking about returning, of being on the line of return, which is an important figure for me and for us people who established Borderland Foundation here, because we not being born here, so with not being born in Sejna or in this borderland, Polish-Lithuanian borderland, but we coming here in the end of 80s and establishing the foundation 1990 and then the center 1991, we founded ourselves somehow on the line of return. It is not a personal story, no exact personal story. So we didn't come back to our own homeland. So also Miłosz didn't come back, to Lithuania when he was born. But we founded ourselves, not being conscious from the very beginning about that, because our intention to establish this foundation was to refer to this multicultural heritage of these lands, of this part of Europe, which was erased by history, by nationalism, by communism, by other regimes, and xenophobic ideologies we had all around, mostly in 20th century. So the question for us was, when we, as my background is avant-garde theater, so I had a team of my friends, and we were just a theater group deciding to settle in that borderland when this transformation time came to Central Europe, and to start something from scratch and something new, for the future mostly. Our way of thinking was about what we could do, how we could build a new Poland, a new Central Europe. So the vector was very much into the future at the very beginning, but just being there, day by day, month by month, year by year, we started to discover that there is a lot in the ground. There are some patterns, way of behavior, some cultural traditions that we should cope with, to read them again, to give them voice, to explore them, and to give the voice to these people who were living before us here. And the voice was also erased. There was no agora here. There was no space to discuss these issues, not only in communist time, but also before that. So a lot of things suddenly appeared around us, which were in the ground, in the borderland. And only, after facing it, exploring it, we started to develop kind of, mostly, for the first period of our activity, just listening. What is in the community, what is in the ground, what is unspoken, what is in kind of taboo here. What is this borderland tradition? We were like, greenhorns somehow coming here at the beginning. So fortunately, we had these guides, mentors like Miłosz or others who help us with books, with meetings, encounters, discussions, but also the major thing was in connection with community, borderland community living here, that they were witnesses of the history, and they were, experiencing all that, and they didn't have language, space, culture to express it. So they were somehow mute. speechless. Yes, because of many reasons to talk about that. So their experience and their memories, their knowledge, wisdom were never, spoken out, and not even to the public sphere, to the space of the city, of the community, of the country, but also in the family. There was a big problem with this between generational gap, that they did not transmit the experience. There was no culture, to help them to transmit this experience to the children, grandchildren, and so on. So this is our position at the very beginning, that we are coming here at the beginning thinking that we are, at the end of the world, because it's still Soviet border existed at that time. There was no even direct phone connection. It was, on Korbka. You were just calling first to the post office and then ordering some calls, to the world. So the feeling at the beginning was for us that we are just leaving a center, a world which started to be open for Poles and for Central Europe to the West after 1989. So Miłosz was very surprised that when he met us there in 1989, that we, being an avant-garde theater, we didn't want to travel to the west with to the festivals, and but we decided to come back to this province far to the east and establishing something new. So that was this momentum for us to establish something new. There was nothing like that, Borderland Center in the small town. Why is his name? What is Borderland Center? You can have a library, a museum, the culture house, but Borderland Center. There was a completely new invention for all of us, but very soon we realize that we are not at all at the end of the world. That with this workshop, with these issues around the borderland, we are more to the center of the challenges and problems of modern world. And parallelly, with us, the Yugoslav war started in the Balkans. And here and there, you were facing more and more crises with multicultural societies, with borderlands, and that's in short, till today. So our work, which was initiated at that concrete borderland, Polish-Lithuanian-Belarusian, but also Russia is not far from us, with this Königsberg region. There is, and Marie knows that in Krasnogruda we have, or Julia, we have this hill when you climb up to the top, and the weather is good, not like today. You can see 4 countries, from that place. Yes, you can see far on the horizon Königsberg region, the border with some forests, from that region. You can see Lithuania, you can see Belarus, and you can see Poland, of course. So that's experience. And the book, coming to the book toward Xenopolis, is my way of finding language for this experience, in both essayistic, philosophical form, and still I explore this laboratory. In our Borderland Center, I'm more responsible for the language, for the reflection, for writing. So I resigned to be a theater director when we started this work, but we do have in our center different studios. With theater, with orchestra, with music, with visual arts gallery, with film studio, with publishing house, with working with children, having educational programs from kindergarten to the senior age people. We have studio for disabled people. And kind of art therapy, the constellation of different workshops, which we try to practice in this community on the daily basis, which is something like a fundament for us, the firm grounds, all these ideas practice in a very concrete circumstances of the community here, but also we work and we have many international programs that we work. I just came back from Caucasus, from Armenia, with our Dilemma Academy. And before I was in the Balkans, in Zagreb, we have our work, in Far Asia, and more in the West. Yes, the more this kind of craftsmanship, or craft, we try to develop and be competent in that is needed in United States, in the West. So that's our situation for today, that we don't feel at all somehow at the edge of the world, being here, and try to learn more, of course, from other borderlands, but also to share our experience. So this is what I would like to say at the beginning to you.
Thank you. And I think, yeah, we can just open up. We are not so many, so I will moderate just the minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have questions or reactions.
Yeah, I have one. So it was my question. I bought recently a Ukrainian edition of your book, and I just tried to compare it with the original one. And the original one, it's like 500 pages, yeah, and the English edition was like twice shorter, yeah. It was like well, why such circumstances? Maybe there is some explanation, because there is a lot of beautiful essays you cannot find in this English edition. Why this?
Yes, you are right. You are right. And fortunately, the Ukrainian edition is full and one-to-one translation. English is different, and it was in dialogue with the editor of the book, Michael, who Michael Fowler, who was editing that book, and she was asked also by publisher Rochester University Press, to think about what it will be, readable and more relevant for English American reader. So I think at the end it was, the result of this consensus we had, that the translators and editors choose some of the part of the Polish original book. Although there are, I think, one or two new essays in this English. I think especially this essay about Polish outsider, is not present in Polish original. It will be in my new book published by, I included it in this English edition. It was published, in English in the press here and there, so we included it into the collection of essays. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, there is some common themes. You as an editor find like closer to English-speaking world, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You see, it is one thing I would add more, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe it will be also interesting for you when you go to the English bookstore in United States or in United Kingdom. You will hardly find essays or philosophical books from Central Europe. So you will find more literature and poetry. And one of the reasons I think, and still we are in such position, unfortunately, that's something I think we try to change, is that for us Central Europeans, for us Ukrainians, Lithuanians, Poles, the room in the West is okay. They have their own language, they have their own literature, so we can translate it. But to discuss the issues like multicultural society, nationalism, or philosophy in essayistic ways, there is much more narrow room for that, and acceptance for that. And so it was. I think I'm also a publisher, and I know how difficult for us is to break through these limitations and these patterns, which are somehow present in the West. Yeah, and I'm always struggling with that when I'm invited to the conference or to the festivals. The room for me, coming from Poland, is that I could speak about myself, my Polish experience, or about my literature and so on. But I do not want to speak about that only. I want to speak and to be part of the problems they have in Germany, in Europe, in United States, in the global things. And I think we have something to contribute to that discussion from our background, our experience, and so on. So this is one of the problems, which I face, and we all face, and that's how this book, for many people, I guess, from the reception in English, was so important, that suddenly you have the voice from this part of Europe, but not about our particular issues only, but something like the concept of Xenopolis, and so on. So this is very much, I'm working also now. I mentioned to you this academy we call Dilemma, which was established by us a few years ago, exactly with this purpose, and that you see, we again, in this part of Europe, in this transformation period, which was natural somehow, we're in the position of adopting to our ground, to our country, to our societies, the patterns from the West. And all the work of elites, intelligentsia, and so on, were very much focused to translate, this liberal democracy system into our ground, into our countries, and so on. But what happened was that we were very much limited in creating new ideas or responses to the more general issues, or even more, taking responsibility on something what is not only our own issue, but in the field of European Union, in Europe, but in broader sense as well, so on. So I feel and more that we are somehow, and this what I guess our friends from the West would demand from us, yes, that we should cross this narrow focus on our own issues. We are specialized, in all these Central Eastern European, problems and so on. And and we did a lot of critical work. You see, on our own memories, histories, and so on. I'm the person who, as a Borderlander, was very much engaged in something that I call critical memory. To find guilt and responsibility on our side, on our Polish side, even not facing, but even facing, Jews, Ukrainians, and so on. So to be honest with not to be not to hide anything and not to be apologetic to our own history and sacrifice and suffering and so on. But now I found myself in a situation that I see all these dark things elsewhere, yeah. And why not to talk about that? I can see these problems when I work in Barcelona or in Germany or in United States and or in Israel, yeah. And and so not to be only with this work and with this reflection and with this responsibility also close to this part of the world. So that's also partly an, I hope, answer to your question, that there is an English edition of this book in different form, but this is also a presence of this kind of thinking in the Western world, in English-speaking world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Julia?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say that the book resonates with me, like personally, so much. Like, first of all, like, I mean, I have been living in Stockholm, like in Sweden, for almost 2 years. So, like, I find myself in this process of losing home and finding home. I work within the institution that was created by the Orthodox churches in Sweden that works primarily with immigrants. I live in international community. I call myself even before the full invasion, the bridge builder. So like I really find like so many resonance within the book. So that's why I do have a lot of questions. But I will start with I guess the most important one about this notion of like the sense of losing home and returning home. Um, um, yeah, I mean, and I do have like two dimension of this question. Like, for example, when we are like the lots of Ukrainians, and not only Ukrainians, that like, for example, are elsewhere in the world, not in their homeland. It's very painful process to, especially within the war, to allow ourselves, like when we are talking about Ukrainians, to allow ourselves to feel the sense of home, that return homes. Um, um, and in the same time, the Ukrainians, the home in Ukraine for the Ukrainians is changing a lot, and we right now, and it will change after the ceasefire a lot. So like my question probably, like, what's your own experience working in Krasnogrudya of this process of losing home and returning home? Like, what can be supportive? How can we navigate these processes and make it probably more smoothly for each other? How can we support each other and not to to be very defensive of our own identity, but to have this sense of plurality and allowing plurality to be around us. I don't, a big chaotic story, but the inquiry is around such kind of questions.
Yes, thank you, Julia. And I can feel your situation, being Ukrainian in Sweden or abroad. And so the first question would be, to come back or not, and where to find our home in this world. And I don't think that there is any kind of obligation you should feel. You can build it also in Sweden, and there are many, life circumstances which will decide where you will do it. But of course, you will feel, and probably you already feel, that some of your people will see it not objectively, but there will be a kind of a message behind this question: did she return or not? Yes, and about how do we understand our patriotism? That's is it together with coming back or not? I think that there are no general answers to that, and everybody should answer in individual way to that, and you can contribute a lot also to your country being abroad, and that's just your fate. But so that's one dimension of this problem. Another is more broader. Never mind if you stay in Sweden or in Ukraine. What does it mean to be settled? To build something what Greeks would call oikos. Your home, small homeland, and because that's, I think, a challenge for all of us in modern world. Doesn't matter where we live, that we should, after modernization, after industrialization, after this period of being uprooted in different ways, and sometimes uprooted in positive terms, that building a new world, becoming cosmopolitan, and becoming citizen of the world, and avoiding or rejecting, or leaving behind us, all these parochial corners of the world, where we were born and so on, because we felt that it is so close, so maybe limited in horizons and so on. So that is this need for freedom, this need for openness and becoming, the citizen of a more metropolis or more open world. I think that this narrative is not anymore so alive and dynamic and beneficial in contemporary world, that you see some poison and some problems, in this situation. Yes, that human being is, we are, longing for belonging. So the question about belonging, and we need a kind of nest, the milieu circles where we feel at home, and that we need these for to be fully ourselves and fully opened. Also, because the problems with that, lacking of this belonging, in contrary what this ideology of liberal democracy would say, for many decades, that you are going to be an open person when you do not belong, that there's a way of freedom, not belonging, and to jump from one place to another, and to have a mobile way of life, and it is more productive, more creative, But at the end, you are without the roof over your head, or sometimes it can happen, and it is not only your problem, my problem, but it becomes a general problem that people who do not have these true belongings, they become more and more xenophobic, more and more having fear towards the others, having more and more problems with community, with living together, with coexistence. This is a very, very great problem of the contemporary world. The problem with coexistence and the problem with community. On one hand, you have this alienation, the people who just took each day drugs against depression or antidepressant and then feeling alienated and alone and abandoned. On the other side, you have a proposition of these nationalistic ideologies, xenophobical, racist, more and more racist. We have more and more racism again in the world, that you just feel see other people as subhuman, and on the lower level, and so on. All this is growing. And one of the answers by me and by my book, I guess, also is that it is because of having problems with belonging, with having problems with coexistence where we are, with our neighborhoods, with our small homelands, and so on. So my answer to your question, Julia, would be either you are coming back to Ukraine or you are deciding to live, abroad, and so on. But you are this or another way engaged in revitalizing the connective tissue, as I would say in my book, the relationships with your neighbors, with nature, with the place, with memories, with hundreds of things around you, which makes you ready and prepared to build something what I call small center of the world. This is my answer, to these problems of being uprooted, alienated, and under this attack of xenophobical ideologies. Just try to create a small center of the world around you, where you are, where fate decided, or you decided to live, here and now, where you are, you could create everything beautiful and most important around you. You are not rejected, you are not neglected, you are not cut off from anything more important and more beautiful or more, relevant. No, it is here where you are. And to come back to yourself and to your place and to your community with all this, what is beautiful, courageous, ambitious. That's why I say center of the world. Yes, small center of the world is crucial for today, and I think it will be crucial for Ukraine after the ceasefire, as you mentioned, that Ukraine will not rebuild itself from the center only, yes, and from only because of great investments, financial, business investments, and so on. As it could happen, and hopefully it will happen, but it will be, this capitalistic machine which will not build a solidarity among people, and which will not heal all the problems of the people in Ukraine. Yes, so you will be more and more, challenged to think about, after-war repercussions with traumatic feelings, with traumatic problems, with negative emotions people have, with thousands of problems. And my concern is that this capitalistic world have an answer how, only technological and financial to that. This, we know how it operates, but but there is a very little investment and knowledge to develop this other dimension, to invest in that. For example, Yugoslav experience, is exactly about that. That when ceasefire was announced in Dayton, 1995, and there was, international community building, this round table, how to revitalize Yugoslavia, how to help, and so on. There was no room around this table and to invest in human relationships, in education, in culture, and so on. That's one of the weak points of liberal democracy, and that there is underestimation of the role culture in these broader terms, culture together with education could play in the development, in revitalization, in making the civilizational progress, and so on. Moren was, talking about the bridges. We understand bridge as a technological effort, yes, how to use, machinery to build a bridge and use technology for that. But we have a very little knowledge and very little capacity to invest with something what is a tangible bridge, invisible bridge between humans, in the coexistence sphere between people, and so on, which is, by the way, the crucial part of the bridge, because when you have it only as a material, object, it helps, of course, in communication, but it do not solve all the problems with the community around. So that's the way how I try to talk also in my book and with other, because I don't think this is an issue for artists, that we sometimes understand culture. Okay, that's the culture people, they will should do something about that. Not. This is about all of us, and all kind of people who feel responsibility for revitalization or for reunion or rebuilding the bridges, and so on. We are all also artists. I'm talking from my position. That we are also limited in understanding that we need for our work cooperation with all other fields, of our life. That this is the art of, there is not an island, of some individual creativity. It's very much about changing also this pattern, and especially we have today this kind of culture, which I call festival culture or event-oriented culture. And you found it also in my book, the problem is that we spent a lot of our spendings and energy and beliefs in this festivalization. So we see more and more darkness around us, but we have this festivity, in culture. This is a big contrast for me. That the darkness is rising, all over, and we do not correspond with that, but we just enjoy ourselves, participating in different kind of events and so on. So all these some small elements of what I would understand by this term coming back, which you are asking about, coming back to a real place and to real community and real circumstances, coming back with all our ambitions, with this determination, to do things on daily level, for a long time, like this kind of organic work. We need, that that is crucial, for when I'm talking with my friends in Ukraine and trying, to help them with some support. Yes, my main concern is, okay, I can give this grant or this, we can do this project, but how I can help you to build a small institution or anything like that, that you will continue this kind of work for years, and doing it, for a long time. This is another dimension of this crisis. Yes, that we are so inefficient with our actions in the world because we don't have time. Yes, we could have good intentions and splendid projects, ideas, but then we have a very limited time which can initiate at the best something, and then there is no continuation. There is no way, or our attention or the grant giver's attention is shifting to something else, and that's another kind of sick mobility. That we are jumping on the surface, but not having time to explore deeply and to build something firmly on the ground.
Yeah, thank you. And can I also clarify about, for example, situation in Ukraine? Because right now, home is changing, especially as a cultural and societal norm. For example, a small example of language. So for a lot of Ukrainians, the sense of home was, for example, Russian language. And since the full-scale invasion started, some people like cut it this part of themselves. And right now, the polls show us that the way of Ukrainization is increasing and increasing, and people like some people are back to the Russian language, and there is tension between Ukrainian-speaking society right now, Russian-speaking society. Especially people who made the effort to come into Ukrainian language, they are not very, how would I say, not so polite and friendly. And like we can understand it, like this tension, because it is the process of war that is very emotional and it's very painful in the black and white picture. So like how can we support like this process of like the changing sense of home, like what can we do within the Ukrainian system? Or for example, when we are talking about the Ukrainians who are in Ukraine or outside Ukraine, like the same situation, and we have a lot of these tensions and what is our home.
Yes, and I experience also it here when Ukrainian writers, for example, coming to my center, and especially at the beginning of the war, many of them were from eastern part of Ukraine, so they started to write the books in Russian. Yes, and for them mostly it was a personal choice that when this full-scale invasion started, they just could not write in Russian. There was this, aporia, inner aporia, that even they could use weak Ukrainian language. They preferred to do it rather than perfect Russian language. And so they had dreams in Russian, but during the day they were writing and speaking in Ukrainian. So there are different kinds of schizophrenical even, situations, which this very complex situation is raising. And of course, I don't have one answer to that. Like we should keep a general ideology, and of course there will be a state policy, which will impose something, to the society. And yeah, I can understand under these war circumstances that there are privilege, for Ukrainian language and to use it and so on. Although, frankly speaking, I was very full of respect for Ukraine, how you were bilingual for so many years in a very peaceful way, even during Maidan. I remember that Russian language was not neglected, that at that time nobody was against anybody speaking in Russian in Maidan, at least as far as I know, some witnesses, from that time. It is coming only now, what you are saying, that it is changing because of this, what Russian aggressor is doing for Ukrainians. So I feel that it's very natural kind of hatredness or, problems people can have with this language. But my answer would be that the different situation is when you put down all these complex situation down to the reality of small center of the world. Yes, again. So we should have powers and time and energies to solve all these among the people in real life, because something else is, the concept imposed, but something else is a real life. I remember, to give you an example, when I was speaking about her experience with Victoria Amelina, you know the great writer and person who passed away because of Russian missile. But her dream, was to create a small center of the world. We were talking about it in New York, in the Donbas region, when she started to organize festival as a starting point for organic community work she wanted to do all year long. And I remember how she was explaining me that she do any kind of efforts to involve or invite Russian speakers, citizens of New York to her festival or to her educational programs or artistic programs and so on. And I think it's very natural when you work on this ground level between the people. You first to think how to embrace as many people as possible, although they are different and speaking different languages and speaking Russian and Ukrainian, and not making this exclusion that you do not belong to our center because you do not speak like that. Yes, that's the first gesture you do with people, inviting them and being hospitable for their different points of view, memories, cultures, traditions. You give a room for that, and if you have it and you continue to this kind of work, that the many things which were less possible or impossible before, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, changing, and you may face a situation that parents will not speak with you Ukrainians because they would prefer to speak Russian, but their children, and they would advocate for that to speak Ukrainian, to go to Ukrainian school, and so on and so on. That's a possible result of that. Of course, I can imagine that it could take much more time. Yes, of course, but I would see, to build this hospitable ground for different people in Ukraine. as something fundamental, that you are not bad because you are like that or that. You are not bad because you went abroad. You are not bad because you speak another language and so on, and your background is like that, like that. That's what made us, that was history behind that. But now we have new time, new horizon, new perspective, and we can build it together somehow. That's why you see something what would be much more difficult on the top level, on some governmental or political level, and so on. Usually it is like that. On the ground level, between people, is much more possible. But only when you have this pattern of small center of the world. I can give you another example with difficult memories, with traumatic things, and which divides people, yes, from the past. And you would say that that it's very difficult to open it up, to in the way to open it up in the ways that the dark side or the guilt is on my side or our side, or so on. I would say that, on the political level, I see, for example, this situation with Polish-Ukrainian relationships. They are so difficult because of, on the political level, there are so many obstacles and prejudices, from the Polish side to Ukrainian Polish politicians are playing this card of memory, of the Wołyń memory, and so on, demanding all the time something from Ukrainians, and capitalizing on that, on their own political benefits. Yes, so that's how politics unfortunately works. That there are little room for bridge builders in today's politics, less and less, unfortunately. And you will not make a big political career being a bridge builder today in politics. So, but again, my response would be, but try to do it with people. Don't listen to the politics. Come down with all these issues, to the community level, to the school, and try to work with that. And it will be not easy, of course, and politicians will intervene with that, of course, and the TV channels will influence people and so on. But at least you will give some alternative, and if you will have time, probably you will have chance to change it, to change these patterns, from the very ground level. And that's my hope. I would see the way out, to all this, because if you will be successful in that, you somehow you will influence politicians. And people who decides about more general policies. When the openness and the acceptance from local people comes out, this kind of maturity, they should listen it, sooner or later. So my answer would be, to heal this fish, not from the head, but from the organic, body of the whole community.
Thank you.
Maybe I can continue if that's fine for Victor and Nazar so far. Just answering to this last thing you said, and maybe then also my question. I think we were discussing also actually with Julia. I remember this dilemma about this working with people or taking responsibility for bigger systems in institutions which are always kind of farther away. But my question is going, because we are searching also for what we are doing actually, and maybe I can put the question more, or trying to explain it from a personal level, because coming to Ukraine in a surrounding which makes everything way more urgent, one is able to ask more radical questions and discover also the patterns of thinking which I never kind of presupposed could be different. So coming kind of from university, I realized that the academic culture and how it exists in the West is a really peculiar and not a way without alternative to do intellectual work, to do work with language. And you are writing about something like putting Central Europe as something not sovereign, but as something which has its kind of character, is also about an intellectual tradition which exists there. And you're writing about those people, I don't know a good word, but it's like something like a dialogical tradition, which works different, which, because it's dialogue, it's maybe much more oral, which comes from maybe a lot of listening actually to how people live, to patterns, and not just rationalization in a more vacuumed way. And I think we are searching for something like that. How can thinking take place? How can work with language take place here? We are also in a dilemma, because to have connection worldwide, we need kind of to be understandable for academic culture. But to have the sovereignty is a difficult word. I'm searching for another, but I don't have. We also have to develop, finding what can live here. What if one plants it here, what will grow here? And I think this is much closer to this dialogical way of thinking culture. And also then the question is, what is it actually for? And what you were saying before in your introduction is kind of helping to unmute, to name the own ways of living, but also to name the changes that are happening. And the question is, maybe one of the question is how to solve this dilemma of interacting with the way stronger system that exchange, learning from them, but without giving up this need to develop the own. And what this own is, what do you see as the intellectual culture in Central Eastern Europe? How does it look like?
Yes, yeah. I like this Central Europe identity, so it is under very quick, often, under the critiques from different sides. Why? Because it's utopian, it's idealistic, it's cut off from reality. There is nothing like Central Europe. Look at our politicians, what they are doing, and so on. And easy way to neglect it. But I like it because first, it gives you this opportunity to feeling belonging to something broader than national state. That, when I'm saying I'm Central European, means that I feel kind of a common ground with my neighbors in Ukraine, Lithuania, Czech, and Romania, and so on. So, and of course, you can question why this only, and not with France or Britain, and why you impose this Central Europe. But history did a lot, and to feel some common experience and ground. But also I like it, because Central Europe has kind of a morale. There is a kind of a ethos. When you say I'm Central European, you feel obliged to be critical to yourself somehow, to go beyond your egoistic particular issues. So Central European has this kind of auto-irony, auto-criticism, in literature, in culture, and so on. So we open eyes of our our people, in Poland to the fate, suffering, experience, richness of others. Yes, and the other is somehow a native for Central European. The Central Europe is very much about having others among yourself. It was always like that, and that's why I believe that it is still actual, and something what we need. But of course, Central Europe has this danger that it could be, okay, we are not Westerners, we keep us aside, and we are much spiritual than this capitalistic West. And you have this also very danger nationalistic or xenophobic ideologies, saying that we are better here, in this part of Europe, because we are more, I don't know, spiritual or so on, which is absurd. But you should know about that also. Yes, that this is more about being critical to that. And if so, yes, we are challenged as Central Europeans to be in solidarity with others, and we are challenged as intellectuals and academics also and scientists to transmit this experience, like today's Ukraine, for example, into the world, to be this bridge which has capacity to build its own narrative, not being colonized by already patterns of narratives by stronger, subjects, but Central European attitude challenges you to create your own together with others. And I think this is what, for example, today's Ukraine need. We should help Ukraine to help their own just full narrative about what's going on with Russia. Yes, and to create a ground of exchange of ideas and so on, to transmit it and to be in dialogue with other parts of the world. And so from one side, Ukrainian experience now and Ukrainian fight, struggle is enriching and reborning even Central Europe. And it's like a vital energy to that. But at the same time, we understand that we should find a way to build a kind of narrative around that. And I think this is something what you are asking about, Maria, that a university or academic circle could be this kind of laboratory also, to create this language, to create these tools, to create this, or to change patterns, which you are very well known, how it operates at the universities, how Slavic studies or how these all issues are marginalized to something what is, on the margins of Europe or on the margins of the world issues and so on. So the question how we can contribute or establish dialogue with something what is relevant, for other, I think it's a big challenge. And it is big challenge also about revolutionary change of the scientific patterns we have. And we were stuck for so many years in these patterns in academic circles under this Sovietology, and other dimensions. So we have hopefully new situation. We decolonizing, this part of Europe. We are creating and we are witnessing emancipation of that. But how it should be transmitted into the narrative, into the message to the others. I think it's a big challenge of a new language, of a new interdisciplinary studies, in many ways. And if it will happen, then it will help us also, or already is helping us being in this part of Europe to, to stood up beyond our, because, it's so strong and prevalent, these to be smaller, and to feel good with your marginalization somehow. So this balance between, of course, we are not pretending to something bigger than we are, but I think today's situation with Ukraine, today's situation with the role Central Europe can play, in alerting also and giving experience how to struggle with racism, fascism, and so on. It's many things we could do together. Yes, in that way. The concept of borderland, for example, for me it comes, from here. Yes, it is from this part of Europe, the tradition. But I find it very, very modern and actual in all parts of the world today. Yes, could we develop it more? When I go to United States, to the universities, I always face this problem of the completely different understanding of borderland, and the way how they do understand multicultural society is a way which is far from borderland. Yes, which was kind of surprise for me. They do understand multicultural as archipelago of different islands, separate, alienated individual or common islands, and so that's one plus another. Yes, and when I start to work in United States, I trying to find a partner for Borderland Foundation. Imagine it was very difficult for me, to find in United States organization which deals beyond the limits of we are Latino, we are Jewish, we are Ukrainian, we are Polish. That's how the way how they read multicultural. So they have a very strong, that's how they mistakenly translating our name Pogranicze, Borderline Foundation. That's what the West understands, borderland, a strict dividing border. But borderland is something different, something opposite to that. Yes, you have a land inhabited by different people, cultures, languages, and more living together. And art of bridging is part of the art of life in that concept. So, and there are no border lines in that strict terms, external, dividing borders. It's all borders are inside the borderland, and so on. I mean that I'm saying that this is possible way for us to contribute, with some new reflections, with some new concepts to our common experience or problems in today's world. So that would be the way I would find answers, to your question, to find all these possibilities within academia, within how you structure your study, how you develop your language, how you cross disciplines, how you build a more subjective narrative, justful to the experience of this part of the world, and having it as a kind of a possible achievement and contribution to common studies. Other answer to your question from myself would be, that I'm searching for new structure for academy. Yes, that we all experience. I used to teach, in some universities, and I have some experience from inside also, how big problem we have, and even inner crisis in academic life and structure of university itself. So to find the way, as you started, probably, I think that's the longing you have of creating a summer school or some alternative schools, academies, that we can test and develop some new patterns of education, of creating academic community or research or laboratory for ideas and so on. This is quite fascinating, I would say, challenge for all of us. That it will be not. I guess that we are on the threshold of some new forms will try to build under these ruins of these big, huge university structures which were functional for many centuries, but not anymore now. I don't know how do you feel it, but that's at least my intuition.
I feel at least that it's in a crisis where, I mean, crisis is an overused word, where there is a potential which losing all of this potential would be problematic. But that you're saying, yeah, maybe not new structure under ruins, but new structures which are saving the most precious of the potential.
Yes,
Something
yes.
like that.
Yeah.
And can you give a few glimpses of your probably insights or anything like about the new structure of academia? Because I guess it's the common question for all of us who are here.
Yeah. Yes. I would try to share some intuitions with you. Some probably, and I think I've mentioned during our Kiev meeting the novel I like very much as a groundbreaking novel for me. It's by Hermann Hesse, Glass Bead Game, Glass Perlenspiegel. And in that novel, you have this utopian concept of Castalia, the pedagogical province. And Hesse located it, I think, in for him a far future, but we are close to that because I think it was 2040s or something like that in the future. But what is tempting in his vision for me was this very special, very borderland kind educational program of the competence you develop in education, which is focused on bridging. Yeah, that the all art you should develop in your life, either like academic, like artist, like human being, is the art of connection. There's an art of building contact and finding correspondence. And of course he goes deep into the past with this concept when really we had in the traditional cultures and you may take Greek Platonic Academy or some Pythagorean concept of academy. It was all the scientists, all the subjects were under the common roof. So going to academy, you were studying everything. You were not, the same happens in medicine. When I work in the Far East and I meet people, working with this traditional medicine, for them it's very surprising that we, the West, did these borderlines between medical disciplines, and we have specialists and experts from head, from tooth, from leg, from heart, and this is all separated, like branches of knowledge. Because in the medical school, everything is together. So you are being educated as a doctor, you should know everything. You should somehow holistically embrace all human organism as the whole and know all the connections between all these elements. The same in Platonic Academy. Once it was together. And so symbolically, you would say that we experience, that we live in the world when the mosaic was broken. You have, once it was a common picture of the whole, consisting, millions of different small elements, but they were consisting and creating one common picture. And what happened was the breaking down of the mosaic into the small pieces. And so I would say that our momentum in the history is that we are finding ourselves in the moments that we try again to connect one piece with the other. We are challenged more and more, to connect ecology with physics, and so on, and so music with mathematics, and so on. That we are more and more aware about losing some fundamental knowledge about all these connections. And so in this new utopian paradigm of academy, I would see these kind of efforts that there will be, the body, the structure, which give opportunity, different laboratories, workshops, programs, which will be focused on connecting. We started it in the Borderland, I can say, with children, with the education of children. We created something what we call Sejny Glass bead game, and it is based on that. There are different cards and on one side of the card there are different pictures which help you to tell a story about a person or an object, like a synagogue in Sejny or Czesław Miłosz, as a person. You have different icons. When you take this card, it helps a young man to tell a story about white synagogue. And on the other side of the card is a pictogram, which says how you can connect this card with another pictogram, symbolically, more in abstract term. But the main competence for this game is not to tell a best story from the card. It is about connecting one card with the other, and to discovering what is connection between white synagogue and Czesław Miłosz, for example. Yes, and so on. And that's how from very young age, we try to teach young people about this art of connecting, on finding correspondences, of discovering relationships, and so on, not being only focused on particular different topics. So this is one of the projection I have. Another is more difficult, I think, to talk about. But more and more I work in the Borderland, more I think and feel how crucial for this kind of work is morale, virtues. You develop this work around, and the way. To find again. Of course, we know what happened with religion, with institutions like church, and all the bad things around this. Yes, but there is a vacuum after all. That of course. From the very beginning, it was connected. Then you had these two poles. One was science, academy, reflection, and another was monastery, yes, church, religion. And sometimes they were, together, but more and more they were spreading, into different directions after Enlightenment and so on, with justful reasons, for all of that. But as a borderlander, again, for that momentum, I'm asking about finding a new space to join and to connect our spiritual development of our inner life with our education and culture. And to find, and this is challenging not only in language, but also in the way you are behaving, in the way of life, in rituals. So more and more I ask myself, do we have rituals or something, to make these things deeper and make them, like something you explore each year, like a cycle, repeating, but deeper and deeper and deeper. And so that something what becomes for you important thing between people, between human relationship, between or among discoveries and ideas you have. The question is how we can implement it in real life and live according to that, changing our life according to these ideas, making them real, not only in reflection academic circle, but in practice. Yes, and how if the idea of dialogue, if the idea of, I don't know, Derrida or Levinas is relevant for us, what we can do with that in a real life. And this is also about changing this life, about finding new spaces, new rituals, new way of lives to realize, to make it possible. Yes, and that's, you may read, the center we have in Krasnogruda with this International Center for Dialogue and the community we have there as a kind of search or risk we take to find it. Yes, to find a way for these practices. So suddenly, after years, we have this ritual. Some of you know about the mystery of the bridge, which became like our holiday. During the year, we have a very special for our community, event, which we call the mystery of the bridge. Each year it is repeated in different way and forms, scenarios, but it is something what we work for the whole year as something what we develop as a part of our life. That suddenly we have a common bridge space and ritual and holiday, to celebrate the dialogue, the connectiveness between the people. That suddenly, because we didn't have this holiday, look to our calendars. We celebrate our independence, our suffering from the others, our own religion, and so on. But we don't have space to celebrate in that way something what we can share and connect with others. So suddenly you are challenged, to create some new. So it is not about repeating or coming back to the past, which sometimes I see, that people have this kind of longing, to reinvent something or to come back to the past. More I think about creating new things, new, to be courageous enough to create something what is very adequate to our circumstances and to do it together with people you are living around. And then you create a new tradition around that, and that's possibly how it works.
Thank you. I think this is very close to our, I don't know, I could even say worries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, yeah.
Yeah, please. I have a short question, really short. in back to the book, what about the no, we all time we are around or going through the book or through main conceptions. Yeah, it's true. But back to the title, I would like to ask you about the title. Anybody could find the allusion to the Proust first book from In Search of Lost Time. Do you want to say something about it? How it connect maybe with your main conception or something? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Victoras. I would say, in short, that the name, the Xenopolis, I created trying to translate the very special word we have in Polish, which sounds obcowanie, which means living together, but a form of being together with others. Like we are now together during this seminar, we can say that in a way we obcujemy. We are somehow practicing kind of obcowanie. But what is very special in that word is that at the core of it is a stranger, xenos. Yeah, so you have polis, some community, some group of people, but crucial for Xenopolis is this stranger, xenos, which you may say that there is no, in more radical forms, that there is no community without the stranger. So until you do not have xenos around you, among you, you do not have a true community. Or even when you do not have him or her, you leave an empty room or empty chair just to sign the possibility of the presence of somebody else than we are. And I read it as something what could be beneficial for our thinking about the future. And somehow it comes, so about the future, how we will create a future model of community. Because now we have, even we may say that stranger is, the outsider or, on the margins, and we do have different ways to marginalize him or to put him in this room of separateness, of being a national minority or gender minority, or when we have, for example, a museum in Sejny about the history of our town, and you will go there and you may ask, it's Polish museum, but you may ask, what about Lithuanians, which are part of this city and this region? You will receive an answer, oh, we have a separate room for Lithuanians. Yeah. And this syndrome of separate room is how we cope with this problem of having the other. Even if we agree that he belongs, to us, we create for him or her a separate room, which is not a model of Xenopolis. Yes, because in Xenopolis it is in contrary. This other is somebody we need to be ourselves and to belong to ourselves and to create community. And of course, it is a difficult task. And this first story in the book about two monks and a woman at the bank of the river is a story about how I imagine this Xenopolis pattern, which somehow transcends the wisdom from the past, because this story, which is mostly a Zen story, in Buddhist tradition, but I found traces of that story also in Christian and Muslim traditions and so on, is that the wisdom of the old monk is that he was, enough ready and mature to behave in a good way toward the woman at the river bank, ready also to break through the loyalty to their own oaths, yes, to the monastery, to the belief, to the faith, and so on. But usually it is an end of the story. So the old monk is wise and right, and young monk is, this weak and person who didn't find a good answer to that challenge of the situation. But for me, this is just the beginning of the story, not the end. Because then when something like that happens, this failure of the meeting of the other, like young man, monk with the woman. Yes, and also the problem between old woman and young monk and young monk. Yes, all these problems are happening in our society. We are all living in communities after that such kind of breaking, such kind of weaknesses that we were not capable in the past to solve something in a good way with the others on that or another situation. And Xenopolis is for that to embrace, not exclude, all of these cases inside and try to live together with all these problems, solving them together. And having empathy and understanding also toward young monk, which probably I could be like that. I never know, how I would behave in such situations. So you never know, but you give him a room. You do not reject him as a xenophobe, as a person who is worth of our not worth for our attention, and so on and so on. Not to push people like him or even this wounded woman by a young monk who rejected help, to her. Not to push these people to the corner of the room, to this situation when you are stigmatized like a nationalist, anti-Semite, xenophobe. When you use these terms to the people, there is no way for them to change. Stigmatizing people, you just fix them on the position they are in this weak moment of their life. Yeah, I was not ready. I was not enough mature. I was obsessed with too many fears, too many obstacles, about all other things. So I committed this kind of sin, or and what? And what? Do I have chance to change myself? Do you can offer me the way, room, space to transform? Very rarely. That's the problem of our cultures, that we are not giving room to the people to change, to be in the process together with this transformation. I would even say more that being, a bridge builder or like a doctor, in that situation, you should feel more compassion to these weak people somehow. And to take even part of the sickness to your body, to understand it, then to heal it. And only then after, to heal it, from inside, from being part of that community of these circles. That's how I understand the Xenopolis pattern could work, that you go inside and you try to change everything from inside, not escaping, not paternalizing others, from above, that they are more weak or, incapable of doing this or another things. No, you go and you are becoming part of their life. You take it, as your own body, and you try to find antidotes towards this poison from inside. And that's That's how it could operate, and that's how I understand, this concept of Xenopolis, that being Xenos is, something what we need inside our house, our room, our homeland, to be ourselves and to let ourselves to change, to be challenged, to be, transform, overcoming ourselves all the time, going beyond our horizon, our loyalties, our, narrow particularities. When you have the outsider inside you, also inside you, in fact, it is inside your heart also. It's not only external. When you go deeper, into this reflection, you understand that this other lives among you, somewhere. You have this other voice saying something contrary to what you would be comfort with, would be easy for you. And suddenly you hear this voice of consciousness saying something different that you would like to hear. Yes, and making you much more uncomfortable because it is so different. It is so strongly other to that, and I think it's something very precious. We should defend within ourselves, as we should defend within our communities as well. When we erase it, reject, imprison, enslave it, that means that it is kind of sickness for ourselves very much. So Xenopolis would be this form of opening this up and making the other as a cornerstone somehow to all our communal form of living.
That's it. Thank you for the answer. But shortly, why this Marcel Proust allusion about toward Xenopolis? Shortly, if you.
Yeah, it's because it's about the memory, yes, which Proust was writing about, yes, and for him, the memory was not possessed by ourselves. So the memory, and it is uniqueness of Proust, I think, in literature, that he waked up this kind of memory which is free from our own possessions, because so in one way you could possess and we can possess our memory and we decide what we commemorate and what we like to remember and everything like that. But in Proust, the memory has this kind of autonomy. She is a kind of stranger. She's always different than you. What you feel that you possess, and the memory is making this distance, between your own way of remembering and how you would like to remember it, and the voice of the other, which is a voice of this autonomous memory, which is untamed by our ego, by our own way of remembering.
Thank you.
Do you need to run, or do we have time?
Yeah, I have time, yes.
Okay, then Nazar.
Thank you. Finally, I got an opportunity. I have to run soon, but still, I want to ask a question. First of all, thank you for your reflections. It's really beautiful, and I have a lot of thoughts in my mind right now, so maybe it's a little bit difficult to formulate a question right now. But I really find beautiful this notion of Xenopolis and the solutions that you are kind of presenting towards mitigating this gap or this crisis of liberal democracy on the one side, and crisis of this backlash that we're facing in nationalistic ideologies that are trying to be particular, focusing on the national state. And I wanted to ask you your opinion about how our thinking can also be informed by Christian understanding of community, of communitarianism, and especially in the light of this European project that was built after the Second World War, that we are kind of transcending our national boundaries, that we're trying to integrate to each other, that we are transcending our regional identities or any other identities, right? Because we have some transcendent grounds. And also the idea of personalism, that is a solution to liberal individualism, as personalism assumes also the dignity of the person and the primacy of the dignity of the person, which is, however, understood in the light of classical notion of freedom as freedom to do good, not freedom as freedom of freedom from coercion, oppression, but freedom to do good. And as I was thinking about this, I thought that your notion of Xenopolis seems quite similar to what the Catholic Church tries to propose to the world after the Second Vatican Council, as revealed in Catholic social teaching, or in this notion of personalism as the idea how the church can live in liberal democracy in general, right? And do you think these notions and these ideas are valuable to contemporary discourse, or because of the fails of the church to meet others in the past, this idea or this voice does not have any place in the contemporary secular discourse? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for this question, Nazar. What comes to my mind for that moment, hearing you remember when Pope Francis became just a pope, and one of the first things he did was traveling to Lampedusa, where it was during this immigrant crisis across Mediterranean, to welcome immigrants from Africa, in this island. And he was asked at that time, I think, by journalists, what would be the role of Catholic Church in such immigrant crisis, like we face in Lampedusa. And Francis' answer was, you see, the church should be like szpital polowy, like a war hospital. Yes, that it means that you just do and give everything what you can to help to save life of other people, not asking about origins, nationalities, passports, and anything else like that. And I think it was very much in the Christian tradition, this attitude, evangelical, that there is no Jew, Greek, as we read in Evangeli, but just a human being, yes, and I think it is something crucial which we lost or losing from time to time, into certain extent. So we are living in the world where this message of a hospital of the war, or is far away. Yes, that we have our nation. What happened very strangely over the history of 2000 years with Christianity was that it became national. Yeah, that church became national. Polish Christian or Catholic Church, Ukrainian, German, and so on and so on. That we implemented this category of nation into the framework of Christianity, the beliefs. And of course, I try to understand it, and we can understand it, when you feel that Christianity became part of creating empire, yes, that it was, this power of enslaving other people, under the common roof of Christianity. So there was this need for small nations to emancipate, yes, and to build their own defend, of their own language, own culture, identity. And there was nothing wrong at the very beginning of nationalism in 19th century in nationalism. It was understood as an emancipatory movement for small group of people, who had these ambitions of defending themselves as different cultures and being endangered by enslaving, yes, and erasing the. So there was a natural reaction to that, but together with this, we lost this universal dimension also in religion and in Christianity as well. So the question would be, and what I see, among my friends, for me, very, very important now. Well, how to say, laboratory, what's going on in the world is what's going on in Gaza, in Israel. And I had many friends with Jewish origin, which were engaged with me on bridge building work. When we work in former Yugoslavia, they were for common Bosnia, defending, openness, multicultural society and everything, and saying, I remember, it was a famous article and book also by my friend with Jewish origin about the post office in former Yugoslavia, in Sarajevo, I think. The graffiti was saying, during the war, that on this post office was saying that this is Serbia, or here is Serbia. Yes, and somebody else, Sarailia, was writing, another graffiti. No, stupid man. This is post office. Yes, and what was the process in former Yugoslavia is to say that post office is Serbia. That is not just a natural, objective being like post office, something natural. No, it was ideologized to become a Serbia. Yes, and I think the same process is happening with us in other contexts. That something what was common and natural, like post office, becomes Serbian, Jewish, or any other tribe. And this friend of mine became suddenly, the defender of Israel in this very narrow way, that there is no human beings who are suffering. There are no Palestinians, like victims of that, but the whole issue is about defending Israel. Yes, and writing everywhere that this is ours, our ethnic or religious thing, losing this other dimension. Why I'm saying that the person which is under difficult circumstances, like many of us, like Ukrainians today, we are tending, to defend ourselves in small tribes. When we are weak, as human beings, we need the fortress. We need, to feel affiliation with our so-called our people, not the people, not human beings, but our people. And our means, very, very often in ethnic terms of religious terms, and becomes more and more. We have comparing, 1945, and this after-war periods when we started to build, this more universal European framework of coexistence. That was this effort, to prevent another never again. It was in the way of finding the ground beyond our ethnicities, nationalities, and so on. Yeah, and what we did I'm now referring to European Union. We did it in the context of politics and economy. So we have Europe as a economical project. We have Europe as a political project, but we do not have Europe as a cultural project. You see, and it comes to this dimension of Christianity, or having, because Christianity I would read also as sharing, common culture, as something what brings us to the same values or cultural dimension. But how it works now in Europe, in European Union especially, look, it works like we have this structure delegating the competence of culture to the national states only, or mostly. Yes, so we have the archipelago of different national cultures in European Union. We have Cervantes Institute, Goethe, Mickiewicz, and so on, to promote our national cultures, languages, and so on. That's how we understand mostly culture today in Europe, which is, from one side, okay, why not? We should care about Spanish language and have Cervantes Institute. Why not? To support translations and everything around that. But when we have only this, and we do not have Europe investment in building, common culture, common framework of culture, it says about something about us, about also the tradition of Christianity you mentioned, yes, that we have these problems with that. We are more safe now because we are weak. I think that we are in a very weak period of our history. We are becoming weak, and maybe it refers to what we discussed before: problems with belongings, with intercultural relationships and multicultural societies, so on. But we are in the more and more I see around me, people who, even being, decades ago, people tending to build something together under common roof, they are more and more defend their own. Yes, and feel that that's the way to survive. Yes, that doesn't matter, how you will judge it morally, but I will keep with my people, and I will defend it, from my loyalty, position around that circle. And this is part of the crisis with Christianity in general, because it doesn't work like that. Yes, so it means that we are, even in that terms, secular, and far from that. So my question would be, including all these questions we raised before, is how to rebuild it in the future in a new forms, which will not be connected to imperial power, caste to small and to others, but which will bring it as a pattern for creating something together, on the equal level of different subjects in that, but having together something, well, as a point of reference of belonging, of something like, in the past we were saying, I'm Christian. Yes, I'm Christian. It means that I embrace some much universal dimension of being human in that term. I said you before, I'm Central European. It was also this kind of, I'm something more, I want to cross or overcome myself, towards something, solidarity with others or sharing with others. And that's I think what is before us, and even more to go that direction, I would say I'm together, I'm with also not human beings. Yes, there's a question about animals, nature. We are growing, to these new forms of understanding our presence in that world, that we are not, human beings at the very center only. Yes, that maybe we should build this kind of solidarity, deeper solidarity with others, and to find also the spiritual ground for that. Saying all of that, I would say that it doesn't mean doesn't mean that we are in the post-Christian time and that before us we have. No, I can understand it more like rereading, and reinventing these ideas from that tradition, like other religious traditions, which had this universal seed. In a new context, yes, and it may, if it will happen, it will bring new life to a religious life, I guess, as well. Yes, and many people from this religious background, I know, will feel the same, that they, being religious, for it's, being religious means, that's why I'm not afraid to use this word religious, when I discuss with my liberal Democrat friends in the West, or when they only hear this word religion or spiritual, they are, alert themselves that something is going wrong and we shouldn't touch these issues. So there is a kind of reluctance, to that issues, because they are too dangerous, and who knows, how to work with them. In my practice, I'm rather tending of including and understanding, that the religion as belonging, as being rooted, is a way for openness, is a way of solidarity with others, is a way toward Xenopolis. That's being deeply religious person. So what it means, taking seriously the words from evangeli and so on. It means that it will help, build Xenopolis rather than opposite, because the most courageous words and virtues and ideas are implemented in these textbooks, So again, there is a challenge also for academy coming back, which were, also we for a long time we were understanding academy as a autonomous, independent structure from this fortress of the church and religion, that we should find new forms of connections and new bridges, from both sides. I would not exclude it.
Okay, there are questions. I think, yeah, you have to at some point put a stop to it if you need to run. But if not, I would just leave it open if you're. Okay.
No, I can take.
So, Sirhi, maybe.
If you have some more questions, yes, of course.
Thank you one more time for your position. Actually, I feel it's very close to my own. And I also into these problems you described and this question you work about, but I use some different approach to these things. And that is the question, if it's possible to get your feedback if I share some ideas I'm trying to build my project about because it's actually all about future society and responsibility, personal responsibility, fostering personal responsibility, if it's possible, or how can it be?
Mhm. So, Serhii, the question is about the role of responsibility in creating new
I think the
forms.
question was maybe if I can share contact, right? Do I understand
Yes.
it right? So to send something you wrote, or
Yeah. Yes.
Of your project.
If I can send some materials about these ideas I'm trying to work about. I don't think that I can explain it right now in this short period of time. I'm sure.
Okay, of course. We can, yes, I think Maria has my email and you can send me all what you have and we can then have chance to discuss it. Mhm.
All right. Thank you one more time.
Mhm.
Monique?
Yeah, I have a short question. I'm sorry,
Maybe
but
Nadika, sorry to interrupt you, because we had a small introduction route at the very beginning. Maybe just really short. Can you tell 2 words about
Nadika.
yourself?
yeah, sorry, I just skipped it because I had problems with my Zoom. I'm Nadika, and it's always difficult to say. Also, I'm searching for what I'm doing and searching how to explain it properly. I think I work with it's actually Masha's words, beauty and memory, and then we discovered that you also have a chapter like with the same name in your book, which was very surprising. And I'm also very in love with poetry, and I think that poetry is also kind of a bridge for me. And like interconnection between many different languages, dimensions, worlds, cultures, spiritual things, material things, and so on. And when I was reading about you as an author of the book, I also saw that you write poems, so I could not help myself checking out what poetry selections you have, and I came across the recent one, which is called Firewords, and I was very touched deeply by the name of it as well. And my question is to you, like, what is the connection between Borderland and Firewords for you as a kind of a creator of this world, like a whole fairy tale, if I can say like this, like what is the role of Firewords in Borderland? Thank you.
Oh, thank you for this question, because you are right, Nadika, that there is connection. And you see, we are talking about the borderland and starting from these ethnic conflicts, wars, and ending up with some spiritual issues, including poetry, trying to prove that these are all connected. And for me, the practice of writing poetry is a practice of making the space around you more dense. You know, that firewords are small forms of haiku, the short poems, the tiny poems describing, designing, space around me here in Krasnogruda and this borderland region, which is full of empty spaces because of not commemorating, because of forgetting, because of erasing, because of taboo, or because of, as we started our discussion being speechless, not having tools to express it. So the role of poetry would be, to give a language, to make this space around you more dense, thanks to the poems you write about, because they keep the elements, lights, emotions, places, in the presence. And more you write, more you feel that something what was more or less unknown and empty around you becomes more dense, more inhabited, more written about, yes? And when it happened, why it is so important for the borderland problems we discussed? Because sometimes the problem with relations with neighbors, with people around you, we all the time discuss here, is because of this empty space between us. That something is unknown, something is unnamed, something is empty, or something is and if it is so, it could be possessed by some evil, destructive powers. Because, for example, ideology is a thing which comes easily into these empty spaces, and gives you the answers or some illusory, about the reality around you. I'm saying illusory because for me, ideology always is not real. Ideology is always something politicians impose to us from outside. And of course, sometimes it is referring to our fears, our weaknesses, but it is imposed. There is nothing natural in racism. Yeah, there is nothing, we are not born with that. But when it comes, it is very unnatural power, but if the space is empty, that you not belong fully, to the place you are living, around you, that's the consequence, that you are giving the room for something like that, the kind of poisonous things. So from the other angle, when you do write this, when you work with other people on that kind of memories, with poetry, culture, art, and so on, you are becoming closer and closer to your neighbors, to your place, to nature, to everything. And when it is so dense, more and more dense with these memories, that is much difficult to break it down. This bridge becomes much more natural and deep and authentic and close, intimate, makes you intimate with all this. So you are somehow stronger because of that, against any poisons from outside. So you may think that poetry is kind of irrational, sometimes romantic ideas, flying in the clouds. For me, my teacher was Miłosz, and for him, poetry was something in contrary. Poetry was something what is real. And when you are mastering poetry, you are mastering something what is real around you. How to not lie. You can't lie in poetry. So working on poetry is jakby finding the way of being truthful to your own emotions, to the world around you. That there is less and less lie and artificial things around you. So poetry, in fact, makes you closer to something what is real, what is at the ground, because the bad poetry is the poetry which do not have any real contact with, and which is lying to reality. So slowly practicing this kind of workshop of language, you are mastering the workshop of connections, of dialogue. And we are saying about poetry, and this is my practice, but the same is with philosophy, I think, with any kind of expression in language, that you take it more and more seriously. Yes, that it is not like blah, 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 empty words. And especially, you see, and I think it is partly our discussion about academy, that poetry is a different language than the critical one. The historians or science usually using. You know, that our science, our academy is based mostly on critical language. And it is a virtue of academy, yes, that you develop as a scientist a critical language you do not trust. You find, you know, dark things, conflicting things, and everything, because it is making your search more legitimate, you know, more credible in scientific terms. But at the same time, the problem is that we have only, after all, only critical language, which we mastered. And there is less and less space for something what I would call good memory or good relationship, goodness. So when you explore studies of the borderland, you will have 90% of language of conflict and wars and problems. Yes, and this is something what science like to explore. Yes, and we have language for that, and we have workshop for that on the academy. But we are very weak as academicians, as scientists, in touching something what is good between people. You know, what happened in a way which shows a light inside us, some unbelievable things, human courage, and so on. How to express it? Yes, how to make it legitimate. All the books I read, you know, about my borderland was, you know, about problems and conflicts and wars. Yes, but when you talk with people, you are on the ground. I'm among them. There are so many other things, so many good memories, which never could be expressed. Yes, and because there is the kind of inability from all sides, you know, to dig it up and to give space for that. So that I'm saying that, I'm thinking that the role of poetry is also, and again, I'm a disciple of Miłosz in that when you write poetry, the true poet can start work, write down a poem where only in this moment when he or she can overcome these bad emotions inside. So the poetry has, even if we write it, you know, about the war in a very, you know, difficult circumstances and so on, there should be something which is in poetry, in this language, in this culture, something which gives you light, which gives you catharsis, which gives you the chance of purifying transgression, you know, crossing that limits to something else. That's the role of poetry, among others. Yes, that you offer to the people, to our common memory, to our common experience, to speak up or speak out with something what was about goodness in legitimate way, in a way that we can trust, in that it is not artificially, you know, it's not a drużba narodów language, you know, this friendship of nations by communist and Soviet times, you know, they you know, destroyed this positive language, using these words, you know, for bad purposes. So we are full all around us. We have these propaganda words of friendship, you know, of love, and so on, and we know that they are empty, and they are used in, you know, by bad powers. But even more important is to think how we can find a way, justful way of saying about all this. You know, how to find a legitimate language and beautiful language to give the chance for all these emotions to be spoken. So that's a very crucial part of our work in the Borderland, you know, to talk about all these and to give even, I would say, more, you know, that we are human beings, so we have light and darkness inside us. We are sinners and angels at the same time. And so everything is in us. And the question is, what will take out from us toward the world? And there are sometimes circumstances which takes from us only the bad things. You know, I'm living in Poland now, and I'm feeling that all politicians are taking from the people the negative things. And that's how they're footing their political life. You know, everything what is weak in us, all fears, all, you know, weaknesses, they take and consume it and capitalize it for their purposes. But we are the same people, you know. There was a moment, as you remember, when the full-scale war started in Ukraine and millions of Ukrainians came to Poland, like 2-3 millions. And we were so in solidarity with Ukrainians. We were better than we usually are, Poles. There was this momentum which helped us to be better. You know, it wasn't, unfortunately, it wasn't last long, and we are now in different positions. But there was a momentum like that you suddenly saw around you so many beautiful people doing so many beautiful things, you know, for others, coming to our country. There was no state policy about that. There was no the camps for immigrants, you know, created like usually we do it. No, it was all on the burden of civic society, you know, of the families, you know, private homes and so. But it happened, and so there was this good power, you know, this good energy. The question is that, of course, now we can criticize it. You know, see, after a certain moment, nothing lasts. You know, look at these polls now. There is, you know, look at the polls, you know, politicians are using. Many people are, you know, there is this anti-Ukrainian sentiment in Polish society and so on. And so suddenly we are much worse, you know, much weak, much dark, but we are the same people. There is no a different group of people feeling and sharing this. So the question is, what we can take from the same people out? And so what kind of language we'll use, what kind of culture we'll use to help us and others to be better than we are usually. And I consider poetry is part of that kind, or it can at least be part of this kind of work.
Thank you.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things to think. There are a lot of things to think about. Thank you.
I do have more questions, but I don't know if it's yes?
Go on.
Yeah. It's you were telling about speaking about when you answered Victor about Xenopolis and the stranger and healing from within. I remembered our last discussion. We somehow in our discussion the word sacrifice came up, and everything however we talked about, we couldn't get rid of the word again. And there was also one discussion where a friend of ours was there who is not here right now, but he was also asking this story of the monk's transgression. And it's about transgression. It's this is really difficult to operationalize in an ethics. Because either transgression or dealing with transgression afterwards again is demands somehow transgression. It demands also border, but do you include the word sacrifice in your thinking? Is it, or have you found a way around it? Because you're in this way that everything is connected. It also connects to your way of life. Poetry connects to your way of life. Academics connects to your way of life. And is sacrifice and all of this demanded somehow, or is it possible to demand it from oneself or from others? And yeah.
Yes, from one point of view, you may say that there is no way to build a bridge with a kind of sacrifice. What I mean by that is that you do not build this in the way that you think that you are on the right bank of the river and the right is on your side, and the bridge is for that other people will join you, which is very often the case of these situations, that people believe that they have right, and they are righteous people, they are on the right bank of the river, and the whole thing about solidarity, about dialogue, about the bridge is to bring others to us, to this right location, because we are right. That's not the way you build a bridge. You to do it, you should resign from your position also, in a way of sacrificing in something what you believe that it is, absolute right. And you are challenged to cross this position, to move towards the other, so to leave behind yourself what you believed before, yes, and you are becoming more or less a different person also, yes, in bridge building process. So everything is in dynamic, that there is no that absolute truth, you just bring others to that, yes. So you may say that this is kind of sacrifice as well, that you resign from your beliefs and something what you consider, as truth, in a way that you somehow sacrificing this to build a coexistence with the others. So that's not possible, I believe, in a deep relations, that when you meet the others, you will not give a gift or offer from your side a gift, and this gift sometimes means, sacrificing something from your own possessions. Yes, and giving sometimes, the true gift is giving the best you can possess, and that's how you establish a true serious relationship with this other side, because it builds kind of strong tie. But sometimes it brings you to a risk of being traitor to your beliefs, like the old monk could be, in eyes of a young monk, a traitor to the oaths they did for the monastery. So that's a very special situation, that you create something very important for you, like a monastery, you becoming part of that. You deeply believe in all the rules of the monastery. You deeply believe in respecting them as an expression of your heart and belief. And suddenly you are in the position of a revolutionary change of that, not being orthodox, and keeping, this orthodoxy, because suddenly you are challenged to cross it in the life circumstances. And it shows you after time that it enriched you, or it was something limited in you before, and you are now becoming more yourself, even by this crossing, not trading and not abandoning you, but being more yourself. This is, I think, amazingly interesting inner dilemma we are talking now. But that's the way how I see, this sacrifice. There are negative
unstable connection. Yeah, there is. Yeah, and yeah, toward.
sorry,
Do you have power
disconnection.
outages?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I want to say a few words about possible negative elements in that way. For example, when you start or tend to think that you should sacrifice something here on earth in terms of being a winner or possessor of some paradise after in another world. So sometimes we understand sacrifice like that, that there is a kind of a determinism, negative determinism in that you will not be winner in a good sense, in a good virtue on the earth. And because of that, you should only believe in the better life afterwards. So you are sacrificing responsibility for your issues and problems on the earth. Well, so it's very much about responsibility, like relieving yourself from the responsibility to solve the problems here and now, and to believe that the peremocha is possible, the victory is possible here. And I think this is an extremely important element Ukraine brings to our discussion in this world, with this peremocha understanding that you keep at stake, the fight for peremocha here and now. I was growing, believe it or not, for many years and decades in the world with this belief in victory. Yes, that the real victory here in the world is impossible. And all these ideologies, were saying, like I remember it from former Yugoslavia, but also in our Polish romanticism, we have it, that you should sacrifice your life, your everything, and you will not achieve anything here, but in the heaven, everything will be paid back. Yes, and so you don't care and don't take responsibility for solving problems here and now. I remember a very important book written by Amos Oz about Israel in the beginning of 80s. It was a non-fiction book. I think in Polish it was Po ziemi naszej, coming on the earth, and he was simply as a reporter, journalist. He was visiting different kibbutz and small settlements of Jews across Israel. And after all this, in the last chapter, he wrote a summary of that experience, saying that Jewish people have the two dominant icons in their life after Holocaust. The one icon is Hitler, so the power of the earth, that if you want to be a winner here on the world, on the surface, you should become like a Hitler power. That's only a solution. Or another icon was a Messiah, yes, Messiah. So so somebody who offers you the good life after that life. In both cases, it was a kind of sacrificing of your own belief in good things possible on the earth. Yes. So sometimes you see you can take from a very dark experience in your life when you touch the heart of darkness, like Conrad would say, that the reading of that experience would be this negativity, this sacrificing of everything what is good possible here, and disbelief in any good solution here. That's the lesson you can take after that experience and transmit eventually all this into other life. And so I consider it a very dangerous sacrifice. Yes, like a rather giving up of all possible work we can do and we can achieve here, but with a very dangerous circumstances. And by the way, my explanation would be that this belief I have in good things and fighting for good things and not sacrificing the goodness, as a possible way on this earth, comes from people who survive Holocaust or survive Heart of Darkness. That they were reading it differently. Yes, that we should do everything to prevent it, and that's possible. And in each human being is a spark of light, at least, even in the most. So without that, without not sacrificing spark of light in every human being, the work of bridge builder will be very difficult. The power for your work as a bridge builder is that you believe and you trust that in each human being there is something good you can refer to. It could be hidden, it could be not present, it could be invisible, and so on. But if you lost this belief, and if you sacrifice it, in that way, that you are, there is an open road to kind of nihilism or dark determinism, that nothing is possible like that. And there are many reasons, looking around what hell we are making around us. But there is another perspective, that we are now here online having this seminar, and you are working in Kiev in your program, and we are working in the Borderlands. So there are still, we are not living in Orwell camp still. So and it could happen. It could happen. Think about that our life could be like Orwellian camp eternally. Yes. And if it is not so, it means that there are certain efforts made by people before us and during this time who makes it possible. That there are some work still ongoing, which makes these good human relationships we have and sharing is possible, and still it is real. Yes, it is not something irrational. So when I'm in in the most dark situations, touching and working, in these terrible circumstances, I'm trying to think, how not to give up, how not to sacrifice, on the name of reality, this kind of belief that reality is only when you give up with these things and make deal with evil, yes, in that or another way. That's only a reality that it is not so. Yes, that this what happens among us now is real also, and maybe even saying more, dictators, tend to believe that they are powers of history, and the truth belongs to them, that they are representing the powers of the world we are living with. But in fact, of course, they are all the time, all of them are losers. It costs millions, sometimes, thousands and millions of lives, and so on. But it would be, not fair to our allies and people who did fight with this evil to say that we should sacrifice their efforts as irrational or not realistic or not truth. That kind of sacrificial attitude is I consider very dangerous.
Thank you.
May I ask a little short one, please? Because we had like big discussion about sacrificing and this particularly this essay about Sacrum, about Mircea Eliade and Michael Sebastian, yeah. There was our discussion who did this sacrificing, who what is the types, was it different types of sacrificing. Did you thought about this when you try to write this essay about this? There was a kind of conception of contradiction, this two characters, yeah, Mircea Eliade on the one hand and Michael Sebastian on the other hand, please.
Yes, it's interesting couple, yes, which helps us to understand what's happened with what may happen also with all of us being, knowledgeable culture people, and invisibly something can change our inner life, in such negative, dark side. And on the other side, the same colleague, from the same classroom can take another path, yes, and can defend himself from such poisons, yes. So I think the answer to that question is universal, and it could work, during fascistic time in Romania in pre-war time, but in our circumstances as well, that we should be careful and attentive to poisons which can be around us. And when we compromise with something what is evil in terms of a higher truth, that Eliade would believe, that he can cope with evil, but then it will be beneficial for the future Romania, as a strong nation and so on, understanding also belongings in that narrow ways, and so on, that it will take and it will bring some consequences, that it is not without the price. And this is, I think, a very important lesson after what happened with Eliade, that the same, I think, happened with Heidegger, and with people whom I understand that till the end, they didn't have courage to confront it honestly with that what happened, because the problem is, because with Choran or with people like him, you can be both, each of us, yes, can be poisoned or can be blind for certain moment to something, but then something happened in his life that he or she can reevaluate it and make a confrontation with that and be honest with that and open it up also to others. As in case of Eliade, I think it was crucial because if you not confront it as a bad thing, then you have another generation of people believing in you as a hero because you do not confront it. You keep this fascistic attitude still with you without any confrontation. And then you have a next generation of these young people I describing in this essay, who for whom Eliade becomes a hero also in this nationalistic way. And you have continuity of this bad seed, you know, to the next generation and with all possible consequences. So the problem is not that we can confront with bad seed, but the problem is how to create an antidotum, you know, antibodies to that poison. Do we have culture? I think academy, church, Christianity, culture, artistic circles are only value for me if they do produce these antibodies to such kind of poison. If they do not do it, there is no sense for me for this kind of creativity and work. You know, if you start to believe that the price you should pay as an artist is a contract with devil, yes, with these devil powers, as it happened with Faust. And so when you have this model of Faustian model in society, there are consequences for that. You know, you can have some achievement in art. Also, for me, they are questionable. But at the same time, you do not produce as culture antibodies to this kind of poison, and it ends up with Second World War, or with Holocaust, or with genocide, or with something like that. And we are responsible for that because we were not producing this antidotum, not antibodies to that. Yes, so we are always confronting this dark wave, you know, which endangers us all the time. That's the nature of our life. And the question of myself is how we prevent or confront it or produce, you know, anti-currents or antibodies to that. And in that way, you know, there is the example of Sebastian, who was, you know, who was like an old monk in this first story. So he did not have any orthodoxy, like Eliade started to have with this fascist movement in Romania. That suddenly you have ideology, you have orthodoxy of something what is presenting, you know, as ideology to the people, and you pay price for truth, for justice, for goodness, you know, in terms of having this ideology working, you know, because you believe that it will bring good in the future, but in fact it is poison. And on the other side, you have Sebastian, who do not have this orthodoxy. So it means that he again sees post office as post office, not Serbia. Yes, and he sees human beings, not Greek and Jew and so on. And he defends this attitude, you know, and this is his elementary how he reads reality and confront it with himself. So he in that terms he didn't lost his mind, you know, and became free in that terms. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we've reached the point where there are no urgent questions.
Or only you started. But
So
it's
thank you very
endless.
much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have, so I will not start now speaking about it, but I think we have a plan. with Yulia and Nastya, a secret plan, but I will write you about this.
Okay.
And at that point, probably, yeah, thank you also for everybody who came and who read with us, and for the questions that you brought.
Yes, I hope that we will continue that on another way. Maybe you can come one day to Borderland and we can have seminars or anything together here, or maybe I will come back somewhere you are, in Kiev or other. Soon I will travel to Lviv only, not to Kiev this time,
But the city we are planning our next school is a city you wrote about in your book.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's generous.
The most beautiful essay I found in your book, maybe I like a lot of rest essays, but this one about Marie, may I tell?
Yeah,
About
okay.
about Chernivtsi. It was wonderful.
Chernivtsi,
Yeah, it was wonderful, and it was like beautiful. And also, I would like to ask you about this structure and like Dante's in Dante's poem. Yeah, you thought about it? Yeah, it was
circles.
Yeah, circles, and to the center of the city. Yeah, it was wow. One of the beautiful things I have found in book. Yeah, please.
So I know that you are planning something in Czernowitz, yes? Chernivtsi, yes?
Yes.
Great. Let's believe that we can meet there. Yeah.
Yeah, in the first week of August next year.
Okay.
So now we give away all our secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
And